They thought they had their prey, but they walked straight into a trap. Two cops, too confident in their own invincibility, came up with the perfect way to take down an innocent woman, never realizing they were digging their own graves. The trial was supposed to be their victory lap, but it turned into their worst nightmare, because they arrested the wrong woman. Los Angeles. Morning rush hour. The cafe was packed. Business types glued to their laptops, tourists sipping overpriced lattes, and the ever-present hum of espresso machines drowning out hushed conversations. Veronica James, 36, sat near the window, legs crossed, one hand wrapped around her oat milk latte, the other scrolling through headlines. Navy blue suit, pearl earrings, posture so sharp it could cut glass. To anyone watching, she looked like any other high-powered professional starting her day. Then they walked in. Two cops. One older, built like a linebacker, a face that looked like it had never known joy. The other younger, nervous, like a rookie still trying to prove he belonged. Veronica spotted them immediately. Instinct. They didn't browse, didn't hesitate, just walked straight toward her. She took another sip of coffee, setting her cup down just as the older cop stopped inches from her table. "Ma'am, I need to see some ID. Not a request, a command." Veronica barely looked up. "And why would that be?" The younger cop shifted. "You match a suspect's description." Oh, this was going to be good. Veronica sighed, tilting her head. "Let me guess, black woman, dark suit, possibly armed?" The older cop grinned. "Look at that. You do match." He tapped his belt, like she was supposed to be impressed. "Now stand up and put your hands where I can see them." The cafe had gone dead silent. Customers stole glances, some pretending not to watch, others staring openly. Veronica stayed seated, calm, collected. "I'll be happy to comply, just turning on my camera first." She reached for her phone, too fast. The older cop lunged. His grip crushed her wrist, yanking her forward, nearly toppling her chair. A gasp rippled through the cafe. Someone whispered, "Oh, this is bad." Before she could react, he snatched her phone and slammed it onto the ground. Crack. The screen spiderwebbed instantly. The younger cop flinched. "Sir." "She's resisting." Oh, so they were doing that. "You're under arrest. Obstruction of justice. Non-compliance with a lawful order." Veronica inhaled slowly. She could have fought, would have won, but not here, not today. Instead, she smiled. "You sure about this?" The older cop's grip tightened. "Oh, I'm sure." The handcuffs snapped around her wrists. As they dragged her toward the exit, he leaned in, voice low. "You're ours now, sweetheart." Veronica didn't blink, didn't flinch, because soon enough, he'd regret every second of this. 3 days in a holding cell felt like a lifetime. No phone calls, no lawyer, just 4 concrete walls and a thin excuse for a mattress. The guards barely spoke to her unless it was to throw out some condescending remark. It was clear what they thought. To them, she was just another black woman with an attitude, someone they could intimidate, break down, make an example of. Too bad for them they had no idea who they were dealing with. The trial came fast. Too fast. Clearly the cops wanted this case wrapped up before anyone with real authority got wind of it. Keep it quiet. Get a quick conviction. Move on. Veronica was escorted into the courtroom, cuffs digging into her wrists. The officer leading her, one of the same ones who arrested her, wore a smug grin as if he'd already won. She was seated at the defense table. Beside her, some state-appointed lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Overweight, cheap suit, eyes glazed over like he was still half asleep. Perfect. Across the room, the judge sat tall, a white woman in her 60s, her face as stiff as her black robe. The type who had spent decades perfecting a look that could turn people into stone. The prosecutor, a clean-cut man who looked like he ordered the same sandwich for lunch every day, stood and cleared his throat. "Your Honor, today we are dealing with a particularly troubling case. The defendant, Veronica James, was arrested after resisting police officers, refusing lawful orders, and exhibiting aggressive behavior." Veronica leaned back. "Here we go." "Not only did she fail to comply," he continued, voice dripping with rehearsed concern, "but she also made violent threats against officers of the law." A low murmur rippled through the courtroom. Then came the main event, the cops. The same two officers from the café took the stand one by one, delivering the performance of their lives. She was belligerent, loud, uncooperative. She attempted to flee. We saw her reaching for her waistband like she had a weapon. She threatened us, saying we'd lose our jobs. Oh, so now she was a ninja, a fugitive, and a fortune teller. Veronica listened, her expression unreadable. Inside, she was holding back laughter. They weren't even trying to make it sound believable, just throwing out every cliché in the book, hoping something would stick. The judge turned to her. "Miss James, do you have anything to say in your defense?" Veronica exhaled, then stood. She squared her shoulders, took a moment, then spoke, calm, steady. "I know I have a lawyer, Your Honor, but I'd rather speak for myself." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The judge's expression barely shifted, but Veronica caught the slightest narrowing of her eyes. "That's not advisable, Miss James." Veronica took a slow step forward. "Oh, I think it's exactly what needs to happen." She turned to the cops, looking each of them in the eye. "You sure about every word you just said?" The younger cop shifted uncomfortably. The older one locked his jaw. "Absolutely," Veronica nodded. Slowly, she reached for her pocket. Instantly, the judge leaned forward. "Officers, be ready." Veronica didn't pull out a weapon. She pulled out a black leather wallet and tossed it onto the table in front of the judge. The courtroom fell dead silent. The judge hesitated, then flipped it open. Inside, a valid, active CIA identification badge. The color drained from the prosecutor's face. The younger cop swallowed hard. The older one? His smirk was gone. Veronica folded her arms and raised a brow. "Would you like to start over?" For a moment, the entire courtroom froze. The air shifted, heavy, electric, thick with realization. Then from the back row, someone snorted. A woman who had been quietly watching the whole mess finally lost it. "Oh, wow. Now that's a plot twist." A few stifled chuckles followed, quickly silenced by the weight of what had just been revealed. At the judge's bench, the once imposing woman leaned in, gripping the edge of her desk. Her face had lost all color. "Miss James, what exactly is this?" Veronica didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned, slow and deliberate, toward the two officers, the very same ones who had slammed her to the ground, paraded her through the system like a trophy, and spun an entire courtroom's worth of lies. They looked wrecked, like men who had just realized the house they set on fire was actually their own. She let the silence hang for a beat longer than necessary, then finally spoke. "It means your system just crashed." She turned to the prosecutor, who looked like he was seconds away from evaporating. "You just tried to throw a federal officer in jail based on the made-up testimony of two corrupt clowns." The senior cop, the same one who had been grinning ear to ear just an hour ago, shot up from his chair. "Well, wait, this has to be some kind of mistake." Veronica raised a brow. "Oh, there's a mistake, all right. Just not mine." She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. The courtroom gasped as a voice echoed through the speakers. "Yeah, Veronica, I'm already in the building. I'll see you in a minute. CIA legal counsel already here." The officers stiffened. For the first time that day, the power dynamic flipped. These cops, these men who had laughed as they threw her into a cell, who had destroyed evidence, lied under oath, and expected to get away with it, were now the ones sweating under the spotlight. The judge exhaled, pressing a hand to her temple. "I need to see all of you in my chambers now." Her voice was sharp, final. Veronica leaned in slightly, just enough to make the officer squirm. "Might want to start looking for new jobs." A twitch. A tiny movement in the younger officer's jaw, like he was holding back the urge to run. The older one, he was already breaking. Suddenly, he jerked up from his chair, moving toward the door. "Officer, sit down!" The judge's voice boomed through the courtroom. Before he could take another step, the doors swung open. Two men in dark suits stepped inside, moving with the kind of confidence that didn't need an introduction. FBI. The courtroom shifted again. And finally, for the first time since this entire disaster started, Veronica smiled. "Well, boys," she said, locking eyes with the two officers, "looks like it's your turn to follow orders. What would you have done in Veronica's place? How would you handle such injustice? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know if you or someone you know has ever experienced something similar. Don't forget to like and share this story if it resonated with you. This story was created not to stir conflict, but to bring awareness and make the world a better place. Your opinion matters.